always from the heart of the city, and now on demand 24/7 on the CHFI website. This is the soundtrack to accompany a pearl of great value. And I'm Don Jackson, around the world on the internet. Emerson called it the gem which dims the moon. The Jewelry Information Center some years back said, pearls are an adornment of the goddess of love, Venus, and in ancient times they were more highly valued than emeralds or gold. In the 17th century, white and black pearls stood for the dark and light sides of passion. More recently, pearls have come to symbolize a happy marriage. This hour, the soundtrack to accompany the luster of pearls, with Lovers and Other Strangers from iTunes and CHFI.com. Five for Fighting with the Riddle and Norah Jones and Don't Know Why. I'm Don Jackson with Lovers and Other Strangers from iTunes and CHFI.com. Of course, it's a grain of sand that gets into the shell of the oyster and irritates it enough for the creature to transform it into a pearl. Have you read the novel The Girl with the Pearl Earring by Tracy Chevalier, or seen the film it was based on, starring Scarlett Johansson? This is an excerpt from the novel. He opened a shutter so that the light fell directly on my face. Now look at me. I turned my head and looked at him over my left shoulder. His eyes locked with mine. I could think of nothing except how their gray was like the inside of an oyster shell. "Greet," he said softly. It was all he had to say. My eyes filled with tears I did not shed. I knew now he was going to paint me. Unquote. She's a maid in the Vermeer household, and as she does her household chores, she discovers she has an affinity for the art of mixing colors. The great artist decides to paint her for his famous portrait and has her wear one of his wife's expensive pearl earrings. The painting, of course, turns out to be a masterpiece, but in the story, the jealous wife finds out and has the young girl released from her duties. At the end of the movie, the girl receives a package from the great painter. In it are the pearl earrings. Lovers and Other Strangers from iTunes and CHFI.com. Daniel Bedingfield, If You're Not the One, and Amanda Marshall with Dark Horse. And I'm Don Jackson with Lovers and Other Strangers from iTunes and CHFI.com. In the town, they tell the story of the Great Pearl, how it was found, and how it was lost again. A line from a classic. The story was originally published under the title The Pearl of the World in December 1945 in Woman's Home Companion. It was first published as a novel by Viking on November 24th, 1947, 62 years ago today. Of course, it's John Steinbeck's classic novel, The Pearl. The characters in his novel thought, like so many cultures the world over, that these beautifully rare finds were gifts from the gods. No wonder brides have adorned themselves in pearls on their wedding day. In the Merriam-Webster Encyclopedia of Literature, this is said about the Steinbeck classic, and I quote, "It is a parable about a Mexican pearl diver named Kino, who finds a valuable pearl and is transformed by the evil it attracts. Kino sees the pearl as his opportunity for a better life. When the townsfolk of La Paz learn of Kino's find, he is immediately set upon by the greedy priest, doctor, and businessman. After a series of disasters, Kino throws the pearl back into the ocean. Thereafter, his tragedy is legendary in the town." Unquote. I'm reminded of a conversation with a friend on the phone some years back. She told me how some members of her family at different times have won big in the lottery. But she also told me that the string of good luck also brought those out of the woodwork who would take advantage of them. We buy our lottery tickets in the hope that a big windfall will end our problems. Truth be told, though, our troubles really only begin with that kind of luck. Do you remember Ernest Hemingway's Tale of the Old Man and the Sea? Santiago, an old Cuban fisherman, finally catches a magnificent fish after weeks of having no bites at all. He lashes the fish to the side of his boat for the trip back to shore. But the fish is attacked by sharks and eaten long before he makes it home. In J.R.R. Tolkien's The Lord of the Rings, Smeagol's friend finds the one great ring, the one to rule all the others, and the creature who is later to be known as Gollum kills his friend for it, claiming it is his birthday and he wants it. Again, in The Tale of the Pearl by John Steinbeck, the pearl diver finds a very valuable pearl, but instead of changing his life and that of his family for the better, the greed of others makes him wish he never found it in the first place. He eventually throws the pearl back into the ocean. Having is often much different than wanting. This hour, a pearl of great value, a parable for lovers and other strangers, from iTunes and CHFI.com. The Looking Glass and Brandy, Eric Clapton to Change the World, and of course the ladies, and If I Had $1 Million. I'm Don Jackson with Lovers and Other Strangers from iTunes and CHFI.com. Every important era in women's history has included pearls. Ancient Egyptian women were buried with them. In medieval times, many European countries declared that only those of noble birth could wear them. During the 20s, the fad among flappers was waist-long strands. And thanks to movie stars Audrey Hepburn and Grace Kelly, pearls became a symbol of elegance and style. Unquote. That from the November 2000 issue of Fashion, Canada's style magazine. Pearls have always been a part of the tradition that brides follow on their big day. They are a beautiful accessory to any outfit, but especially a bridal gown. A writer in the February-March 1990 issue of Brides magazine said, and I quote, "As the earliest gems known to prehistoric man, Pearls were considered a gift of the gods, since people had no hand in their creation. Unlike other stones, such as diamonds or rubies, which need to be mined, cut, and polished to reveal their beauty, pearls are fully formed when they are found resting on the bellies of oysters inside their shells. The wonder of finding a rare and valuable pearl gave rise to the belief that the pearl personifies new life. Krishna the Adorable, the eighth incarnation on earth of the Hindu god Vishnu, is said to have first discovered the pearl and then worn pearls into battle to ensure his long life. He later gave pearls to his daughter on her wedding day. From the beginning of history, pearls have personified feminine virtue. According to one legend, pearls worn by a woman who is not chaste will lose their luster. An excerpt from the February-March 1990 issue of Brides magazine. I'm Don Jackson with Lovers and Other Strangers from iTunes and CHFI.com. Tina Turner with Private Dancer and Train with Drops of Jupiter. I'm Don Jackson with Lovers and Other Strangers from iTunes and CHFI.com. More of the lustrous legend of pearls from this Brides magazine article. Cleopatra, it is said, dissolved some of her best pearls in wine or vinegar and presented the love brew to Mark Antony when they met. Oysters, which form pearls, are a legendary aphrodisiac. In the early 17th century, Rudolph II of Hungary prized pearls for their medicinal, magical powers. He not only wore them, but pulverized and ate them. Rudolph may have stumbled on a priceless source of calcium nearly 4 centuries before calcium became the health rage. Unquote. After reading that, it's not something I would advise you do. Pearls are too beautiful to be pulverized, and besides, there are tastier ways to get your calcium. And this is an excerpt from an article by Nigel Sitwell from the January 1985 issue of Smithsonian Magazine. Sitwell writes, and I quote, "Unlike diamonds, rubies, sapphires, and emeralds, pearls are soft and sensuous. Elegantly understated, they respond to different kinds of light in subtle ways that enhance the tonality of a woman's skin. A fine necklace of cultured pearls may be as impressive as one of diamonds, but not nearly as expensive. Revered from earliest times, pearls were the most valuable of all gems until diamonds overtook them. Because their translucent beauty seemed to embody the virtues of purity and chastity, they were a popular religious symbol. Pearl jewelry was part and parcel of the Romans' addiction to pomp and luxury. Ladies liked to adorn themselves with pearls before going to sleep, so that, as one Latin chronicler put it, their dreams would be filled with lustrous gems. Nero's scepter and Constantine's helmet were adorned with pearls, and it is said that the freshwater pearls of Wales were the reason for Julius Caesar's invasion of Britain in 55 BC. Unquote. Nigel Sitwell in the January 1985 issue of Smithsonian Magazine. Lovers and Other Strangers from iTunes and CHFI.com. Coldplay and Viva, Vida, and Roch Voisine, Am I Wrong? I wonder how many people go in search of the one great pearl, and if they find it, are they willing to accept the possible consequences that come with its lustrous shine? In Steinbeck's novel, the pearl Kino finds brings nothing but bad luck and evil to his family and disrupts his way of life forever. As in the case of anything considered precious, greed can cloud a man's or woman's vision enough to blot out some of the more important aspects of life. But that's not to say that one shouldn't enjoy the finer things life has to offer. You just have to put those things into proper perspective. Just keep in mind how greed contributed to the financial mess the world is still in today. Lovers and Other Strangers from iTunes and CHFI.com. Good night, sweet dreams. I'm Don Jackson.